Hello everyone. In contrast to the intro there, which obviously gives a bit of a British Commonwealth theme, we're actually looking at more Irish kit today. And what we have here is an Aertex jungle green, in British terminology, shirt, but a tropical issue shirt. Now, interestingly enough, if I'm right in my understanding and what I've been able to sort of glean from photographs, this isn't only Irish issue. I believe this may well be something issued to UN troops more generally in the 1960s. It is an Aertex shirt. It's very similar to other patterns of tropical shirt which were around at the time. When Irish troops were first deployed as UN peacekeeping forces in the 1960s, of course, to the Congo, they were shipped out in what was colloquially termed bull's wool uniform, essentially a wool service dress, which you can see here. And this was worn in country for a time, which is certainly not ideal for the heat and humidity of Central Africa. More suitable tropical uniform, so essentially what would be considered jungle green uniform, was issued. And it seems that a very similar pattern was also issued to other UN troops in the Congo at the time. The uniform consisted of the shirt and a pair of green drill trousers, and the drill trousers seem to be a very similar pattern to those produced in India and issued to both British and Indian troops during the Second World War. The pocket layout is very similar, the pleats and the pockets and so forth. So it's possible that these were actually Indian made. I've not been able to confirm this. I've not been able to nail down where the trousers were produced and the exact pattern, whether the double buckle waist fastening was part of the design as per the Second World War trousers. Obviously I'll put a card in the corner of the video looking at the Indian jungle green uniform, and you'll be able to see there the pocket layout and so forth is very similar. As for the shirts, they appear to have been manufactured by, or at least procured by, a Japanese company called Toyo Menkei Kaisha Limited. And the reason I say that is there are excellent examples of these, which have UN insignia on the arms, issued to different countries, not Irish, issued to different countries, which have that manufacturing label in the collar. And in terms of design details, the half-fronted, the pocket layout, the shape of the flaps and everything, the material they're made from, they're identical. So my assumption is, and it is an assumption, I'm very happy for people in the comment section to provide more information on this if they know, my assumption is that this uniform was provided more generally to UN troops. And this seems to be the case with other troops from other nations deployed to the Congo. They wore a very similar tropical uniform. So it makes sense, of course, Ireland included within this, many of the troops being deployed by the UN to tropical regions would not have their own tropical uniform. What does the Irish Army need with a tropical uniform? It doesn't. So, as I said, when initially deployed, they were wearing their wool uniform, and my presumption is that they were provided with tropical uniform. Either Ireland was, pointed in the direction of where to buy it, and it was bought by the army for the troops deployed with part of the UN, or the UN provided it. I'm not entirely clear on that, and I'd be interested to know. So that's the sort of presumed origin of this, and if anyone has further details on this or knows of veterans who may have further details on this, I'd be very interested to know, because it would be good to track down exactly what's going on with these and whether they were, they do appear to have been issued more widely, but what the procurement system was for getting hold of these, whether Ireland bought them or whether the UN actually provided them in country. Not entirely clear on that. But to talk about the details of the shirt itself, it's a very simple design. Originally it would have been long sleeved. It has been short sleeved at some point. It's had the sleeves cut off and then sort of roughly hemmed at the bottom here. You can actually see how sort of wobbly the seam is there. We'll perhaps have a look at that in more detail in a moment. But it's half fronted. We have 4 buttons down the front. We've got one at the collar, the top there, one further down, and then the 2 which are fastened up there. Simple layout of pockets on the front, obviously pleated pockets, 2 pleated pockets with a simple pointed pocket flap on each. These small buttons here, some of the earlier ones, certainly the photographs seem to show a slightly larger button, but otherwise the pattern appears to be essentially the same. The ones in period photographs that I've shown are half-fronted shirts. A little bit of an antiquated design for the 1960s perhaps, but other than that, these are very similar to actually British Aertex shirts which were on issue at the time. To clarify, for those who don't know, Aertex is a cellular material. We'll get a close-up shot of it. I'll try and cut that in here to show you the weave of the cloth. You can hopefully see that here. It's similar to football shirt material. It's breathable, and it was quite popular at the time, but it isn't very hard wearing, so it would fall out of favour for tropical clothing, but still quite common in the 1960s for tropical military clothing to be made out of Aertex. Looking at the side here, we can see the shirt sleeve has been modified there. This has actually been turned over, you can see the rough edge inside there, the rough edge of the end of the sleeve there, where it's been short sleeved and then the end's been folded over and stitched to neaten it up there. As I say, originally this would have been a long sleeve shirt. See the epaulette up on the shoulder there, as you can see, fairly standard for military shirts at the time. And if we look underneath the arm here, you can see the seam coming down to the side here. Longer tails at the rear than we have at the front. Just move this around and have a look at the back. Looking at the back here, we can see a seam across the shoulders here. Obviously the seams are down each side, so no seam at the rear. Long skirts in the rear. There's no real extra detail to see on the collar or anything. It's fairly standard for, as I say, military shirts at the time. The Aertex shirts, construction's not that different from the British issue shirts of the time. We have a little dart let in at each point here on the shoulders, as you can see. We won't have a look at the right because there's really nothing more to see than there is on the left. But we'll turn this inside out now and have a look at the inside details. So as I say, I've turned this inside out now, and you can see the details of the construction at the front here, the half-fronted design, as you can see there. You can see the outline of the stitching for the 2 pockets on the chest there. Not a huge amount of detail to see, obviously, because it is a very simple garment. Looking at the left-hand side here, you can see better the interior of the sleeve there, where this has been short-sleeved from having been a long-sleeve shirt originally. You can see the detail of that, the rough edge where the sleeve's been cut off and then neatened up. And we can see the details of the seams on the inside there. Looking to the rear, we can see the seam across the shoulders there again, and the 2 little darts let in there. And if I lift the collar up, you can see we do have a detail of a hanging tab in the centre there, where the label would have been. That's another thing pointing to the manufacturer I mentioned previously, is that the label does seem to be the same. It originally was white, there's a few threads left of that here, and it was the same sort of shape and size as those I've seen in photographs of other shirts. So that's what sort of lends a little bit more weight to the idea of that Japanese manufacturer. So that's a look at this Irish/UN issue shirt. As I say, I've certainly seen photographs of what seems to be the same pattern worn by troops from other nations serving under the UN flag at the time, and I've seen extant examples which are still with their long sleeves but otherwise made to this pattern, badged to other nations but also with the UN insignia on them as well. So it does seem apparent that this was not only Irish issue, these shirts were issued out to troops from other nations serving under the UN flag as well. But as I say, this is an Irish issue example. They seem to have been worn somewhat later on as well, after Ireland's involvement in the Congo. So I suppose that would lend credence to the idea that Ireland bought these and they remained in stocks. They were sort of pointed in the direction of a supplier, bought them and they were issued out and then kept in stocks for a longer period. I don't have any confirmation of that. If anyone does know, as I said previously, I'd be very interested to know if you fancy dropping a comment down below. If you found this interesting and you'd like to see more from the channel, then please do consider subscribing if you haven't already. And whether you're newly subscribing or you've previously subscribed, please do make sure you hit the little bell, the little notification button down below, which will of course alert you when I upload future videos. If you really like my uploads and you'd like to support the channel, you can. There's both a PayPal and a Patreon link down below, and a massive thank you to everybody who supports the channel using those 2 methods. It really is greatly appreciated. If you'd like to follow the channel on social media, you can. There's Facebook, Instagram and Twitter, all linked down below. And if you'd like to get in touch but you don't really use social media, there is of course an email address down there as well. But that's everything I wanted to cover in this video, so until next time, bye for now.